Good day, everyone. My name is Harlo JT Domopoy of BS CE3B, and today we will be discussing topic 1 of Unit 1, brief historical background and historical gap of Muslims in the Philippines. Historical background. Muslims in the Philippines, known as Moros, have a rich and long-standing history that predates Spanish colonization. Islam was introduced to the southern Philippines in the 13th century through Arab traders, missionaries, and scholars from Malaysia and Indonesia. By the 15th century, Islam had taken deep roots in Mindanao, Sulu, and parts of Luzon, with the establishment of sultanates such as the Sultanate of Sulu and the Sultanate of Maguindanao. These Islamic sultanates became political, economic, and cultural centers in the region, governing large populations and engaging in trade with neighboring countries. The arrival of Spanish in the 16th century led to conflicts between the Spanish colonial forces and the Muslim communities. The Spanish sought to convert the indigenous population to Christianity and incorporate the Muslim regions into their colony. This resistance against Spanish rule, known as the Moro Wars, lasted for centuries, with the Muslims in Mindanao and Sulu successfully defending their territories and maintaining their Islamic identity. After the Spanish-American War in 1898, the Philippines was ceded to the United States. The American colonial government tried to integrate the Moro regions into the broader Filipino society, but this led to further unrest and clashes. The Moro rebellion against American rule persisted into the early 20th century. Following Philippine independence in 1946, the Muslim regions remained relatively autonomous. However, tensions between national government and the Moro population escalated over issues of land ownership, political representation, and cultural autonomy. In the late 20th century, these tensions gave rise to the Moro insurgency, with groups like the Moro National Liberation Front or MNLF and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front or MILF seeking greater autonomy or independence for Muslim-majority areas. Efforts to resolve the conflict led to the creation of the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or ARMM in 1990 and later the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM in 2019, a key achievement in the peace process between the government and Moro groups. Historical gaps. So there are many historical gaps, no? We have first one, the underrepresentation in national histories. The history of the Philippines is often taught with a strong focus on Spanish colonization. The revolution against Spain and American colonial rule with limited attention to the pre-colonial Islamic sultanates or the Moro resistance to colonization. This marginalizes the contributions and struggles of Muslim Filipinos in the broader national narrative. Number two, bias in historical accounts. Spanish colonial accounts often portrayed Muslims negatively, labeling them as pirates or savages in attempts to justify military campaigns. This biased perspective has persisted in some historical texts, overshadowing the rich cultural and political legacy of the Moro Sultanates. Number three, lack of documentation. Much of the early history of Muslim Filipinos is based on oral traditions and limited written records, making it harder to reconstruct a detailed and nuanced history of early Islamic communities in the Philippines. Many historical accounts have been lost or were not recorded systematically. Number 4. Minimal focus on women's roles. As in many historical narratives, the contributions of Muslim women to the socio-political and cultural life of the Moro Sultanates and their roles in the resistance against colonization are often overlooked or not well documented. The history of Muslims in the Philippines is often underrepresented in national narratives, focusing more on Spanish colonization and Christian influences. Early Muslim communities and their contributions are marginalized, with many historical records either lost or biased, particularly in depicting the Moro resistance. There's also a lack of focus on the roles of women in more society and resistance, creating gaps in understanding the full scope of Muslim history in the Philippines. So that will be all. Thank you. I hope you learned something from this presentation.